Good morning, everyone, and I've got the esteemed honor of having Mike DiMuccio not only as a friend, but as our guest on the call today. He's going to be talking about some stuff that he's very familiar with, and perhaps one of the best books that you can have in your success library is Think and Grow Rich. And he talks about just the beginning of everything is just a burning desire, making a decision, commitment. These are words that need to describe you if you want to be successful. And so, Mike, you've done this a lot. Do it one more time for us.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone, and wherever you may be watching this in playback. Well, Dave, the subject today is decisions, and it's so synonymous with the word success, because essentially, one of the books you just mentioned, maybe the book, is Think and Grow Rich. This is a book that was carried around by one of my mentors, Bob Proctor, and continues to do so. It's his Bible of success. And he refers to this chapter of decision making quite often because it seems to be from this point all things come. And he says that successful people are in the habit of making decisions quickly, and they change them rarely, if at all, while people who lack success are indecisive. They have a hard time making a decision, and even when they make a decision, they change their mind quite often. So if you look at the desire for people to have success is abound, but the art or the skill, if there is such a thing, of decision making is really not something we're taught. In fact, if we are taught, we're taught to fear making a decision. Consider when you were a kid growing up in school, whenever you got your report card back or your test scores back, what you often saw was the things that you did wrong, marked in red. And so that became a prominent thing. We didn't want to be wrong. And so decision-making became the fear of being wrong. And yet it really has nothing to do with being right or wrong. It just is an outcome. It produces an outcome, and that may not be desirable as an outcome. Maybe there's a more desirable outcome, but it's simply an outcome. But when we have it in our mind that we have potentially the ability to be wrong, and such a fear of being wrong, what will others think, etc., it paralyzes people from making decisions, especially the kind of decisions that we're talking about making, decisions of a lifetime, the kind that you and I made some years ago that changed the course of not only our lives, but the lives of thousands of people on many continents, because we chose a different path. We chose a different trajectory than what was considered socially acceptable. And I want to put a sort of an underscore on that. I mean, how socially acceptable is it for us to become wealthy or healthy or happy, for that matter? Because when you consider social norms, how many people you know are happy, healthy, and wealthy? And that's the minority. That's not majority. So we don't want to be normal if we want to be successful. We want to avoid the pitfalls of trying to fit in with everybody else, because there's not that many people who experience that kind of quality of life. So we want to start to associate ourselves with people who have a different way of thinking. I'm not sure, Dave, if you're just going to ask me questions or do you want me to just keep talking?
Oh, this sounds really good. When you're saying all of this, one of the thoughts that comes into my mind is that you can't get out of this with indecision, because that's a decision. And and so we're deciding by default, and so we ought to be actively deciding and making commitments. And
very good point.
And also, what you were saying, another thing is, as one of the keys to success, you could almost say is observe what everybody's doing, carefully study them, and then do exactly the opposite.
Well, you bring up a point that I wanted to share on my screen here, if I may. This slide is something you may have seen in a presentation recently, I'm not sure, but it is in one of our business presentations. And I think it says so much, because it really tells the story of our lives. On the left-hand side are all the results that we have in life, where it's with respect to our income, happiness, relationships, etc. And what you see here are three people who are on a trajectory. actually, there's only two on the trajectory. I don't think that third person exists. One of the things my mentor used to teach is you're either going up or you're going down. There's really no stationary position because the world continues to move forward and evolve. So essentially, we're moving toward or away from those things that we really desire. And it's something that happens subtly. You know, it's the choices that we make, whether you, as you point out, whether we're making them consciously or whether we're making them unconsciously, that eventually become our habits. And it's the small choices with consistency of time that produce this radical shift in our trajectory. No different than an airplane that could be maybe 1 or 2 degrees off course, certainly not enough to notice. But if you're flying over the ocean and you're 1 to 2 degrees off course for that entire duration, you're not going to get where you want to go. And so most people aren't checking back often enough to see, are they going in the direction that they want to go? Is the trajectory they're on in life taking them where they want to go? And when we look at statistics like happiness, like health, like financial success, what we find is most people are that person on the bottom shelf there being pretty frustrated and going in a direction and feeling rather helpless because they don't even know how they got there. They look around, they see so many other people are in the same boat, so they figure, well, that's normal. It's okay to be this way because it's common, and yet it's not what they really want. What has to happen is a slight shift in trajectory, just a very subtle change in the choices that can become new habits that create the new trajectory. And it doesn't have to take a long time. I made the decision of a lifetime for me and my family. It was December 1991. Within 27 months of that, I became a Nikkei diamond. At that point, I was making as much money per month as I was making annually previously in my previous life. So that change happened very, very quickly. But what really changed? Did I really change, or was the choices that I was making different? That's the thing about the Nikkei opportunities. It creates a path for us to be able to make choices that are slightly different, more in alignment with the things that we really want out of life. And subsequently, the results are very, very dramatically different. This is kind of this parallel, these two stories is the story of the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. He talks about his two influences, his major influences in life, one being the father of his best friend who was very wealthy, and his own father who did well as an employee of the state of Hawaii. Now, when they talked about money and finance, they talked very differently about the same subject. The entrepreneurial father, the very wealthy person, had a perspective, a viewpoint, a belief system, if you will, that caused him to make choices in a particular way, which, by the way, also, if we look at statistics, people who come from wealthy families tend to duplicate this. People who come from entrepreneurial families tend to duplicate this. So it's the sins of the father are handed to the son, or the gifts of the father are handed to the son as well in terms of beliefs. So his other father, his natural father, when it came to situations with money, they always had financial issues. And he would be very conservative in his approach about teaching his son about money. Two different perspectives about the same thing leading to two different, very different outcomes. So the question this really asks us is, first of all, what's the trajectory on? Is that what you want? And then secondly, what have you allowed as influences? Because that can be the difference. The influences you let in can be the differences between which of these paths you take. Any thoughts about that, Dave?
Oh, this is such powerful stuff. A couple of things is just this power of compounding. The compound effect is such an amazing principle because if you examine, those two people, moment by moment, it might be fairly subtle, but just that power of doing little things and turning into daily activities, which become habits. It's astonishing what happens. If you go to McDonald's and just have one happy meal, no big deal. But if you've watched the movie Super Size Me, if every meal was that way, things can be disastrous really quick. Another thought as far as, what we all want, success, happiness, wealth, healthy, all of those kind of things. They really are habits. They are lifestyle choices that you do every day. And this idea of deciding, just making a decision. And of course, before you can decide, you got to really decide, what do you want with your life? And I think one of the wonderful things that you and I had an advantage of being plugged into what was a system, because the experts say that it begins with a decision, and then decide where you want to be, and then the next step is find somebody that's where it is that you want to be, that's already there, and have a mentor. That's one of the greatest shortcuts of success, is find somebody to teach you what they're doing, because we really do live in a cause and effect world. And it's such a powerful idea, that what you do, there's consequences regardless of what it is. And if you do the same thing again and again purposefully, where you're deliberately going somewhere, and then if you're copying the exact same things that someone else is doing, you'll get those same results, whether it's somebody that's unsuccessful or successful. It just happens. So it's pretty simple. Just decide what you want to do, find somebody to coach you and mentor you, and then go to work.
Well, you're way ahead of me on this discussion, but I'm going to come back to that.
Sorry.
I want to talk about choices being, where do these choices come from? Most of the choices that we make are not even really ours. They're just simply things that we adopted in terms of our beliefs. And we pick that up from our upbringing. We pick that up from our associations with organizations, from our education, from our friends, the people we hang out, et cetera. So I think there's a phrase out there that you know, if you want to know what your income is, just do the average of the 5 people you hang out the most with, and then that's the average of your income. So there's a real truth in this, and that is that most of our habits, most of our choices come from a belief that we simply adopted. We're not doing it on a conscious level. It's just the way it is. You know, you're slowly getting cooked inside that water as that water temperature goes up slowly. So this is the way of the world in terms of what's normal. And there's a lot of support for normal. I find that one of the earliest things I learned to do is stop listening to the news. The news doesn't report what my mind and my consciousness needs to hear in order to move forward in the direction that I want to go. It simply commiserates the misery of others and makes me feel maybe a little bit better about myself because my situation's not that bad in comparison. So it's the wrong way to use my mind and my willpower. The better way would be to read books and, as you said, to associate with people who cause me to think beyond my thoughts, beyond my own beliefs and system of support where I grew up, so that I can expand that. In fact, if we look at this next slide, most people would probably relate to that person inside the box. Again, this is from Robert Kiyosaki in his book, Cash Flow Quadrants, where he talks about how income or money is being generated right now. There's 4 ways: as an employee, self-employed, as a business owner, or investor. The most important thing about this slide is the people on the left who trade time for money represent 95% of the population. The people on the right, only 5%. But when it comes to the distribution of money or wealth, 5% of the population share in, or excuse me, 95% of the population on the left side only share in 5% of the wealth. Meanwhile, the few have so much. And it's not their fault in terms of a morality issue. This is simply they operate on a different set of beliefs and therefore engage in a different set of circumstances. If you believe you need to get a good education so that you can get a good job, chances are pretty good that's where you're going to end up. And the result of that is a situation that puts you inside a box of your own choosing. You created it, but that's just the reality. Whereas people who are entrepreneurs, who've learned how to leverage and multiply the success of others and the effort of others, can create many businesses and many income streams, much like we do in You Can. So is it a question of fault, or is it or station in life, or is it just a matter of understanding? And once you have a newfound understanding, can you make a bridge? Can you bridge from the left-hand side to the right-hand side? And that's where the guidance system comes in. That's where the mentoring and support comes in. The ability to have somebody help you move from the left side to the right side is to actually have somebody who's outside of the box. You don't want to be listening to people who are in the same box you're in. The worst thing you could do when it comes to making a decision, the absolute worst thing you could do when it comes to making a decision about your life, your future, is to ask the person beside you who's in the same box as you what they think. That's the worst thing you could do. Because what do you think they think? They think whatever it is that you think. That's how you got there. That's how they got there. And you're going to stay there thinking that way. You need to get some outside information, some outside influence. Well, if you don't mind, Dave, I'll just continue and you just jump in as you see fit here. So let the A line, for all intents and purposes, represent us in our present situation, our current results in every aspect of our life, from income to relationships, you name it. And we're in the habit of being there. Now, here a situation is presented to you, an opportunity, say Nikan. And now you need to make a decision as to how you want to move forward. Maybe you're already in Nikan and you want to make a decision as to what's next. Or maybe you're not in Nikan yet and you're making a decision as to whether or not you want to get involved. The tendency of somebody who's on the A line, because of the lack of confidence in decisions or skill set, the tendency is for us to assume something. We think, if I got involved in this, what do I think I can achieve? And so we base a decision on what we think we can do. And what the challenge with that is, it's just an arbitrary position, but it's not a position that has a lot of horsepower, if you will. There's not a lot of emotions involved, because usually the B line is only marginally greater than the A line. It's only a slight change, only a modest change in maybe your results. But we're talking about compounding that can create huge results. So if you are on the A line and you're thinking about what you can do and you're making a decision from that point of view, here's the challenge. The challenge is that point of view is from where you're at. You're thinking about what you think you can do, the person that you are, the A person. Well, what does that person create in the way of results? The A results. So you're going to continue to repeat back and forth. There's just simply not a lot of energy in this position of repeating what you think you can, what you think you can. And so people tend to not move very far in life when they're making decisions about what they think they can do, rather than what is really key, what you really want. What do you really, really want? I don't know if you can see that C line up there on the right-hand side. It says, what do you want? This is the dream. The idea of having something that really drives us, really compels us. It's within us. It's latent within us. So a simple example is when you think about something that you really want. We do an exercise in one of our courses here in Nikan, Humans Being More, where we create a storyboard or a life cycle plan, we call it. A vision board, essentially. And on that vision board, you put the pictures of the things that you really want. And we caution people, if you're going to do one, don't waste your time. Put stuff on that storyboard, that vision board that you really, really want. Because when you watch the group of people present their storyboard or their vision board, we call the life cycle plan, and you see the energy and the emotion coming out of them when they're describing that future reality, there is so much energy and so much power and so much passion in what it is that they really want. You would never see that come out of somebody who put pictures up of what they think they can have or what they think they might want, which is usually modest. And when it comes to making a change in life, you've got to get out of the momentum of the track that you're in, which means you've got to be nudged over, and it takes usually emotion, energy, passion, power. So if you don't have that, if you're not funding that, if you're not fueling that by having a desire, a goal that you really, really want, then the decision you're making will probably lead to more of the same. And so that's why people tend to get the same stuff in life. Even when they set a goal or make a decision, it's such a modest place that they're coming from and a modest decision that they're making. They're not giving themselves the best possibility, the best outcome. And furthermore, what you think you can do, again, based on what you currently know, is only going to lead you to what you already know. So if you want to go after something you really, really want, as Dave pointed out already, as you pointed out, Dave, is you got to find somebody who's already there. If you can connect with people who are already there, then you're going to see yourself, especially if you can identify with these people, you're going to be more likely to see yourself as one of them. One of the things that we encourage in Nikan is for people to attend events, especially big events. The main reason, ultimately, the main reason we want people to attend those big events is because that's where they're going to meet a lot of people who are living the dream. And when you connect with those people who are further ahead than where you are, who are further outside of the box than where you are, when you connect to them and you realize, you know what, they're real people, they're human. Actually, they're kind of nice people. I get along with these people. You can start to see yourself as one of those people. And when you can see yourself as one of those people, now striving for it becomes just much more plausible. And you will have the support. Any comments about that?
Well, this is powerful stuff. A lot of it goes back to what you said before, that it is a fact. We are a product of our environment. And if we want to change, one of the greatest things we can do is change our environment, because we really are the average of the 5 people that we associate most with. And it's not just our income, but our health, our values, pretty much everything is like the people we're with. And so, you know, going to big events, just hanging around people that are in a new culture where we're all striving together to do great things. When I was introduced to Nikan, that was the thing I loved. All of a sudden, I was plugged in on a daily basis with good people. I had a roadmap to take me there, and wow, such powerful things. Also, Mike, I really, and I think that's such a big thing is, you talked about that dream board, you know, having deliberate goals. Where do I want to be in 5 years? Think about that. And you know, if you have some hopes and dreams and specific things that you want, rather than just, well, I'll take life a day at a time as it comes, and you know, part of your language is, well, take it easy, don't work too hard, and can't wait till the weekend. This is a way to change, and as Jim Rohn says, when you change, everything will change for you. And this conversation that we're having right now is so powerful. Along that line is that decision where you started out, Mike, where in Think and Grow Rich, it talks about just make a firm decision. Successful people make decisions. And once they make that decision, it's really hard for them to vary. Where unsuccessful people, it's really hard to make a decision, and then it isn't really a firm commitment anyway. They're all over the place. And so Rudyard Kipling said something that really stuck in my head. If you really want something and you don't get it, it means you really didn't want it after all, or you tried to bargain over the price. And so it's really important to just really think, what do I want to do with my life? And I think one of the things that's universal as Nikan people, inside all of us, we're looking for a significance. We want to make a difference in the world. And then, of course, what you talked about, I think, is universal. We all want to be happy and healthy and wealthy. When I first got into Nikan, I met a Japanese lady, and we're just sitting together. And I says, how long have you been in Nikan? And she looked at me, a big smile, and she says, I'm 80 years old. I've been in Nikan 16 years. And I'm healthy and I'm wealthy. And I thought, hey, I'm on the right road here. So
I want to give you an example of this, Dave. This concept of A line, B line, C line. The B line is what we think we can. We plan. We make a plan to get there, right? The C line is so far out. It's where we dream. It's our fantasy. We can't make a plan because we've never been there. We don't know how to get there. And so the fear is, well, if I don't know how to get there, if I don't know what to do, then I can't make a decision to do that. It's kind of like saying, when you ask somebody, are you going on vacation? They say to you, oh, no, I can't go on vacation. I don't have the money. What do you need the money for? You haven't made a decision to go on the vacation yet. until they make the decision to actually go for it, they'll never accommodate the money. They'll never find the money. They'll never save the money. They'll change absolutely nothing about their behavior. It's until the decision's made. When the decision is made, that's when things change. It's at that moment you gain access. This is a really, really important point. When you make the decision, a committed decision, that means no other possibility, then you gain access to insights and information that you would not have otherwise had access to. And I'll give an example of this concept. And if we stood on a street corner and I said, I want you to count all the cars in the next 30 minutes that drive by that are the color red. I bet you after about 30 minutes, I came outside, you'd give me a fairly accurate count of the number of cars that went by that were red. So if I said to you, Dave, how many of them were blue? You'd say, what? I don't know. I wasn't counting the blue cars or white or black or for any other color for that matter. I just know how many red cars. So the information was there. It was always there. You just didn't see it because your mind's eye, your mind, your conscious awareness wasn't focused on any other information. It was simply focused on what you were looking for. So the habits, the choices that we make, the A line, the condition, and for that matter, the B line, which is really a pseudo A line, that condition is you looking for the red cars, and you're going to only see red cars. You're going to only see information and have access to opportunities and circumstances that continue to perpetuate the A line. Well, how are you going to get access to the C line if you've never been there? How are you going to draw attention to the blue? And the thing is, until you do, you're not going to get there. So here's where this strange kind of thing that we need to do comes in. A leap of faith. This thing called a leap of faith, where you go after something, you don't know how you're going to get it, but you're going to go after it because you really want it. Like that vacation you want to go on. I don't know how I'm going to have the money or come up with the money, but I'm going to make a point of doing it. Or that house that you purchased, you know, the one you couldn't afford when you were looking at it, and you decided that's the house, that's the one. And then what? You didn't have the money. Most people don't have the money. What do? They go to the bank and they convince the banker to give them the money, that they're worth it. And so they change the circumstance. They create the outcome. They create the situation. They gain access to the resources. They gain access to the information that they would not have even needed until they made a committed decision. So think about how important the decision point is to provide the means, the vehicle, the access to the possibility and the circumstances and situations that lead you to the C line. For all intents and purposes, the A line, the B line, the C line, these are all arbitrary. In fact, they're all connected. They're just levels of awareness. But the higher you reach, the more engaging you become because it's now speaking to your soul, to your heart. And if you can imagine in your mind's eye, then the means, the mechanism are just around the corner. It's just a matter of switching from looking for the red cars to looking for the blue cars. And that's a decision. The cars are there always. It's just a decision as to which one are you looking for. And then you'll start to see what you need to see. And the circumstances will present themselves. I was asked once, that's a decision. How long does it take to make a decision? Well, we know it's a split second, but how many volts? In terms of, as an electrician, my background in aerospace and electricity, they were asking me, Mike, how many volts do you think it takes to make a decision? And I looked that up one time, what it takes to fire a synapse. It's about a billionth of a volt. It's so tiny. And yet, think about the ramifications of a decision. The decision I made to join Niken 26 years ago. It's a billionth of a volt. And what did it result in? A huge change for me and so many others.
Yeah, quite possibly the most powerful thing in the universe, or right up there, is just a decided mind. That's a powerful thing.
So I guess the point is, you're not going to know. You don't need to know. You just need to decide. And then the knowing comes as a consequence. The circumstances, the people, the situations, all these things will filter into your life, those blue cars, because you made the decision. But if you're sitting there saying, well, I can't make the decision because, well, I can't see, I don't know, I can't see. You're you're repeating what you're in the habit of repeating, which will cause you to experience what you're in the habit of experiencing. That's simple.
Just a step at a time. When you program into your phone, I'm going to go to some destination. You don't have to know everything. You just know the next turn and just move forward. And success really is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. So it's a step-by-step process. You're on the step towards your goal. You're successful, and you're moving there. So big important stuff.
Well, I want to switch here to this next slide, which is, what do you really, really want? I met a young man some years ago in a hotel lobby, and he was dressed in a nice gray suit, very pleasant, very French Canadian, big thick French Canadian accent. And we had a nice long conversation, and he described his life, and I told him about mine, and the goal was for him to decide whether he was going to join me in Nikken. Now, at the time, he had lost a lot of money in another venture, and he had nothing. He literally had no money, not even the money to register as a Nikken consultant. So, of course, he was eager and anxious, and I told him what he needed to do. And one of those things was he needed to, number one, sign up. And then he also needed to invest his time, his money, his contacts. And in the way of money, it was in the way of products. And I went through all that. And I said, look, this is the formula. This is how we succeed in this business. And I'm really good at what I do. And at that time, by the way, Dave, I think I was earning about $20,000 a month. So I was pretty confident, and maybe a little cocky too. But I just knew that if he didn't follow the proven path, the proven pattern, that there was no way I could be sure to help him. And I didn't want to mislead him. So I told him, this is what it takes. Well, he didn't have the money. So I gave him a story that was once shared with me. And I asked him, do you have a daughter? He says, no. I said, well, imagine you had a daughter and she needed an operation. And this operation was going to cost like $10,000, or this could be really, really serious consequences. What would you tell your daughter? And he said, I'd get the money. I said, Well, he says, well, yeah, but I said, what's the difference? He said, well, you're talking about someone's life. I said, yeah, as I nodded, because I was referring to him and his life, that he was willing to do what it took to find the money for his daughter. Was he willing to do what it took to find the money to build his dream? Anyway, I let him go without making that comment. I just inferred that. So I thought I'd never hear from this guy again. How many times have I told that story? How many times do I never hear from the people again? Well, it turns out that this guy phones me back 3 months later. On the other end of the phone, I get this really thick French Canadian accent. And the first words out of his mouth, I got the money. I'm like, Sylvain? And he says, yes. And he goes on to tell me the story of what he did selling long-distance calling cards in the streets of Montreal so successfully that they actually put people under him to train. So he had his own little network going, and he was even earning a commission from their sales. And he made enough money that he not only had the money to get it started in Nikken, also put a down payment on a car. Now, you'd think, here's a guy who's on a trajectory. He's already making money. Why would he call me back? Because what he was doing, which was really, really well at it, but took hard work. What he was doing to make the money to do Nikken, because that's the dream. That's what he wanted. He wanted to live like a successful entrepreneur and network marketer. And he saw the potential here. So what that proves is if the desire is really there, again, this comes back to Think and Grow Rich. If the desire is really there, you'll do what you have to do. You'll do what it takes. And that's what this guy was doing. I'd rather have 2 or 3 guys like that than 100 guys who have the money, the time, and the contacts. Say, oh, sure, I'll do this. The 3 or 4 people who have that kind of hunger, that kind of desire, which, by the way, long story short, he was the first millionaire in Quebec. First millionaire club member in Quebec. First diamond, started a branch in France, etc. So, and has a life. And by the way, found his wife in Nikken as well, 2 beautiful kids. So, I mean, the point is, go back. When was the decision made? And what did he then do in order to make that a reality? He made his mind up that he was going to work with me and start a Nikken business, and then did something to find the money. That's desire. And he made the decision, a firm and committed decision. He didn't decide after he was making money in this other thing to keep doing that thing. That's not what it was for. So this is a really good exercise, because it turns out that if you were to ask him, of all the things that he learned working with me and working in Nikken, what was the one thing that he learned? And that was, when people would ask him, or when he would be meeting with people and they would say, well, I don't have the money, which was a very common argument, he would say, that's not a reason not to do Nikken. That's a reason to do Nikken. Let me tell you my story. And then he would tell his story. So he had that ammunition because it was real, it was authentic, and it was an incredible way to teach people from his own personal experience. So I think at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, is what you're doing what you really want? Because if it's not, it takes an enormous amount of energy to keep doing it. In fact, it takes almost no effort and no energy at all to do what you really love. Dave, do you feel like this is work?
Oh, I've told people that just as a warning, that if you get into Nikken, it can really mess up your mind because you all of a sudden are in a position where you can't tell whether you're working or playing. It's that good. And so, yeah, it really is. Hey, Mike, talking about Sylvain, I just saw him at a recent meeting, and visiting with him, he's making another run at this. A lot of people are. I know you are. Could you just a couple of minutes say, why Nikken, why right now? What's happening, and why would this be not just a good career that you and I did so many years ago, but why are we using this as kind of our encore career? Many people do that. They go through their life and then they get older and they don't want to retire. They want to do something else. Well, Nikken was so fun, I'm going to do it again. So I'm kind of relaunching. Why Nikken? Why now? And what can we do?
There's different points of view on that, Dave, for sure. I mean, I love what I do, but what's becoming, I guess maybe as we get older in life and we rearrange our priorities, some things come to the foreground, some things go to the background. Back when I was going after my dream, it was about having a life, building a life, creating a life, having the big house and all the things that we associate with success. That's, I wanted that. And my highest value was freedom of time. I just wanted to be free. So having all of that, now what? What's the encore? What's happening is I'm seeing in the time that I've been in Nikken, a change happening in the world that I'm kind of alarmed about and alerted to. And I see a need to disrupt the momentum of that. I see, for instance, I see people in terms of health becoming, I feel they're being abused. I feel there's a system out there that was never intended to support and deal with health. It was only designed to treat illness. And so it's like that saying, if all you have is a hammer, every problem is a nail. Well, if the paradigm is you got to get sick in order to go see a doctor, we don't say that, but that's the paradigm. That's the underlying unconscious scenario. Then their behavior will be consistent, which is I won't take care of myself because when I'm sick, I'll go see a doctor. They'll have the system to take care of me. So we don't teach, we don't educate, we don't develop a conscious and awareness as children on the need to be healthy and stay healthy. Whereas, for instance, in Japan, they are the healthiest nation on earth. Unfortunately, they've been influenced by the West, but still, they are the healthiest nation, and their whole prejudice or paradigm, a position there is to prevent illness. So everything is all about balance, yin and yang, and when they eat, it's a balance of acid, alkaline, and so forth. It's an awareness that they have it's built into the culture. So I'm finding we're hitting a critical point. Recent stats are telling us, we got children now with adult diseases. This is happening at such an alarming rate. In the last 10, 15 years, it's become critical. With Wi-Fi, the invention of Wi-Fi and cell phones, we are now starting to see something else happen in terms of neurological disorder. But what I see happening in the world is a crisis. It's so big that the next generation, my children and their children, my grandkids, are going to have the hardest possibility of being healthy. And so I want to consider myself and the people I associate with as the forerunners or forebearers of a change in the trajectory of what's happening, so that they're not fighting for health. They're not fighting to survive. They're being given awareness of how they can thrive financially, physically. This concept of being able to thrive, everything that we talked about today. In fact, if that's all we ever talked about, we would be helping the world in a big way, because the world needs to make better decisions and be better at making the decisions and commit to something that moves them in the trajectory of what they really, really want, not what they have settled for, which is resulting in the situation we're in. We can't settle anymore. Somebody has to be out there leading the charge and saying, no, it's not okay to settle. It's not okay to be normal. Because normal right now has led us to a point where it's not even you anymore. It's the next generation and the generation after that. They're telling us statistically that it's growing at 14%, that autism in children, that by 2025, 1 in 2 children will be born with autism. How could society, just go for, project out 10, 15 years from now, how would society function if half of society was autistic? It's not conceivable. So this is the trajectory that we're on that needs to change. And the change doesn't come from the top down. That's another thing I've learned over time. The awareness that I have is the change comes from the bottom up. The power's in the people, which is why I love network marketing. I love network marketing because the power's in the people. It's the most democratic entrepreneurial system on the planet. And people who criticize it are just ignorant. They're simply speaking without understanding. And it's our job to help them get an awareness, because once you get aware of that, once you realize what this is, it's the evolution of free enterprise. When you realize that and you understand how to communicate that, then it just becomes a passion. So for me, Niken, this iteration of Niken is not about what do I get. It's not about what am I going to embellish my life with in terms of personal rewards. It's really about what can I contribute to making a difference. And so there's a generation that I hope to influence, the next generation that I hope to influence with this understanding that if I can give some of them this insight, they might save themselves a lot of time and heartache and start moving in the trajectory that could help a wave get started, a wave of people becoming aware that there is not only an opportunity, but a better way to get life lived in balance. And Niken, in my opinion, thus far, I've not seen anything that's comparable. There's a lot of good opportunities out there, but there's not that many that have the whole package. And I just think that we're it. We have an incredible vehicle to offer the world that is spiritually sound, intellectually sound, and physically sound. And so it's just a matter of making a decision, reaching higher. I think that's another thing. If I'm talking to the field of Niken representatives out there listening to this, set a higher expectation for yourself. You're the leading edge of a change that needs to happen on this planet. You cannot afford to aim low. It's just that simple.
I was at an event. A bunch of people were there. The person on the stage says, okay, I want everybody to stand up. And I want you to reach. Raise your hands and reach. Okay, I want you to reach as high as you can. Is everybody reaching as high as they can? And then he says, okay, now I want you to reach a little higher. And what was fascinating is everybody did. And I just, what a graphic illustration, and what a wonderful challenge at this time. If anybody's had just the slightest experience with Nikan, you probably are watching this right now because you've experienced the power of these products, and all of us probably have witnessed how this has completely transformed an individual, changed their whole life. And people that couldn't do things that they loved to do, people that were hurting, whatever, all of a sudden everything changed for them. And I think, wow, all we got to do is scale this. What if everyone had Nikan products? What difference would it be? And I really believe, along with you, Mike, that perhaps one of the greatest challenges for people, for mankind right now is healthcare. When you look up healthcare crises or health crises or whatever, all of a sudden you see hundreds of millions, I'm not exaggerating, of hits, which basically says that the number 3 cause of death is our healthcare system. And I think, oh wow. And then what about the people that didn't die, but they're not healthy either, but they're on maybe half a dozen different prescriptions, and they're having all of these challenges. I just, wow, we have a better way. And if everyone were on Nikan, there wouldn't be a health crisis. I'm convinced of that. And so we have a way to get the money-making thing out of the way, to have time and money freedom as an individual, to basically be
actually, Dave, we have
make a huge difference.
We have a way to fund health. We have a business model, or let's just call it a model, that can actually help people fund health. So let's say, for instance, you get involved in Nikan, then the earnings that you're making from sharing, say, 5 items, I think I did the calculation, it was 4 or 5 items. So if I bought a Nikan water system and I shared 5 of those with friends and people that I cared about, the earnings that I would make in just that exercise would pay for my own. So I now have a way to fund my own well-being. And it's the seed of an idea that can be a wave across the country, and that could be product after product. And then, of course, it could go beyond that in terms of the business to create freedom of time. So we have a business model and this is important because I think the only way to succeed in the face of a $3.2 trillion healthcare system is to make it equally profitable. If it's profitable to be healthy, and if it's profitable to be in the health business, the wellness business, as profitable as it is to be in the medical business, then we have a chance of really growing this thing and exploding this thing, whereby it could become the norm. It could become the new norm. So the fact that there is a business vehicle, an income earning opportunity here, is critical to the success of it. It's absolutely essential for it to propagate, or it won't propagate. Charity will not propagate. People are out there always asking for money, and it's the sort of the same old. Nothing really changes, nothing really expands. This needs to expand. And the way it can is by profit motive. But I would rather be profit driven to be healthy than profit driven to become sick.
Oh, you hit it right on the head, because you think about it, it's not efficacy, it's profit and politics. And the healthcare system, some people think, oh, it's broken, but in a way it's a business, and it's doing exactly what it was designed to do, make a profit. And basically Paul Pilzer, a real noted economist, written a lot of books, when he studied it, it's just too compelling to create a drug that doesn't really cure, but treats an illness. And so rather than just buying a bottle and you're all better, business-wise, it's a lot better to have them on a bottle a month for the rest of their life, turning every problem into a chronic condition managed by medication. And so it's not going to be fixed by some government bureaucrat. It's certainly not going to be fixed by the pharmaceutical company. It's going to be fixed by somebody on the outside, an entrepreneur. And I believe our products, this is the company that has the power to what you would call disrupt, demonetize, democratize. You know, all of the good things that that we can do. We can change the world together. So,
Dave, and we are. And the thing that we need to do is do it better and with more boldness. And this kind of brings this last comment up here, you know, genius, power, magic, the idea of making a decision. If you don't mind, I just want to go through this because
please.
This was something that we learned about, was shared with us some years and years ago, but this sort of encapsulates the entire conversation. Until one is committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back, always ineffectiveness. Concerning all acts of initiative and creation, there's one elementary truth, the ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid plans. That the moment one definitely commits oneself, providence moves too. All sorts of things occur. And that word providence, by the way, is what we were talking about. Situations will happen that you could not have imagined. Providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. A whole stream of events issues from the decision, raising one in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidents and meetings and material assistance, which no man could have dreamt would have come his way. All of this from a decision. I've learned a deep respect for one of, now correct me, is it Goethe? How do you pronounce his name? Goethe? Oh, you're muted.
Goethe.
Oh, thank you, Goethe. Okay, well, I've learned a deep respect for one of Goethe's couplets. Whatever you can do or dream you can, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. This is all we're talking about here. We're talking about a leap of faith, that when you step into it with a leap of faith, even though you may be uncertain, you still make the decision. What will happen is things will come in to your field of view, your sphere of influence that would never have been viewable or perceived by you had you not made that decision. And this is what my life's experience has taught me. I'm sure this is what your life experience has taught you, Dave. And all the great things that have ever happened to the great people didn't happen because they knew what they were doing. It happened because they made a commitment, a decision to do it. And then whatever happened, happened. You take a look at the light bulbs, and just such a simple idea as a light bulb. It's said that he had to go through 100,000 different iterations until he finally found something that didn't blow up or burn out. How many of you would have lasted? I mean, but he was committed. And now we have light 24/7 because that was something he brought to the world. Now, do we have to go to that extreme? Probably not. But the point is the point. If you really want to make a big change in your life, the change that you need to make is the decision you're making. Make it on a conscious level. Make the decision to have what you really want, and then all the other things start to fall in place.
Oh, thanks, Mike. I think that this. I'd never heard this before I got into Nikan, and I've read a lot of stuff. When I saw this, it just profoundly changed me, and I think one of the most powerful concepts is this idea right here, that the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. What a powerful thought that God is actually interested, not only in everything about you, but interested in your work and what you do, especially when your work involves something high and noble like changing the world. And so I think you ought to go for it. This is the time to reach higher, do more. Our product, it is unsurpassed. The market, it's immeasurable. The opportunity is yours. Now's the time to go big and play big. So let's go for it. Any final thought or word, Mike?
I think that's the final thought. The final thought is we need to think big. We need to really expand. And if what's prevented us from thinking big is the uncertainty, the not knowing, just recognize that that's the exact thing that we have to defeat. It's not about knowing. It's about taking a step forward in faith and knowing that, and trusting is the better word, and trusting that this thing called providence, these circumstances that have been demonstrated by leaders and thought leaders and business leaders and inventors from the beginning of time. This has been proven. All you have to do is look at success and follow it. It's a proven formula. And it always starts with the decision to do something big.
Let's go for it. Hey, thanks, Mike. And you can do it. We need you, and play big. It's your turn. Thanks, everyone.